is CNN.
The Space Shuttle Columbia on the pad and ready for liftoff, but storm clouds are casting a shadow of a doubt over an on-time launch. Welcome to News Hour. From Washington, I'm Reid Collins.
And from CNN Center in Atlanta, I'm Bobbie Battista. NASA has one eye on the sky, the other on the clock. The Space Shuttle Columbia is scheduled to lift off in about 7 minutes, but overcast skies threaten to delay the launch, and one Air Force forecaster says he'd place his $2 on the side of Mother Nature. CNN's John Holloman joins us now for the latest on the launch. John?
Bobbie, the Columbia will be in space for 13 days with a 7-member crew doing science experiments, growing high-quality protein crystals and trying to determine how materials behave in the absence of gravity. The crew members have been inside, lying on their backs for about an hour now, with a major variable in any space shot being the weather at the launch pad. CNN's John Zarella is there. John, from here, it looks like you have a typical Florida day, hot and muggy. What does it look like to you on the ground there right now?
It's typical hot and muggy, John. Behind me at the shuttle launch site, it really doesn't look all that bad. But to the west of us, the clouds are building, the storm clouds are moving in. It is all from that system that was down in the Caribbean south of Cuba. There are also storm clouds that are rolling in over the shuttle landing facility, which is to the right of me and also to the west. That landing facility, of course, would be used in the event of an emergency in case the shuttle had to try an emergency return here to the launch pad. So right now, the conditions here are no-go as far as weather. Everything else appears to be a go as far as the shuttle is concerned. What they will do is wait, probably sit in this hold or maybe bring it down to T-minus 5 minutes and then hold again and just hope that somewhere in the 2.5-hour window they can find a hole in these clouds. John?
Okay, John, as you were talking, the launch commentator from NASA was saying that there's going to be a hold of at least 5 more minutes right now. That's what I'm hearing in my ear as you stand there. There are a lot of different weather problems that NASA has that can prevent a launch. And since the Challenger disaster, of course, which had a cold weather problem, they've beefed up the rules a lot, haven't they?
They certainly have. For one thing, there are heaters on the SRBs at the joints, which are always running, even on hot days like this, because of the super cold temperatures. But the immediate weather concern, even if these storm clouds should blow over, is that the high-level clouds that we have around here could cause trigger lightning. That is, if the shuttle goes up and it moves into supercharged atmosphere, it can literally cause lightning strikes. We know that shortly after the Challenger accident, an expendable rocket was blown up because of a lightning strike caused by trigger lightning. So there are many weather concerns, and in this kind of condition, unstable atmosphere, it is right now fairly iffy as to whether NASA will be able to launch Columbia today. John?
Okay, John, what I'm hearing right now is that there's this 5-minute delay to wait for the weather to get up. And so what will happen is the countdown, I guess, which is now at minus 7 minutes maybe, will go down to -5. They'll stop it there, wait for the weather to clear up. Then we'll have 5 minutes warning for the two of us to be talking again right before the shuttle goes up, if it can make it today.
That's right.
All right. Thanks a lot. That's our report from here. We'll continue to keep you posted. At this point, the shuttle, which was supposed to go up at 7 minutes after noon Eastern Time, is not going to be able to do that because the weather at the launch site area is just too bad at the moment. But we'll keep you posted. If it clears up, we'll be back. Reid?
All right, gentlemen, and we'll be checking back with you momentarily and as time goes by. Most of the nation's rail lines may be at a standstill, but the halls of Congress have been bustling. Negotiators up there trying to work out some end to the nationwide rail shutdown. A strike early yesterday by the Machinists Union against the CSX Corporation triggered other rail companies to stop all the freight service, and some union leaders complained of a lockout. It stopped most of the passenger service, too. House and Senate negotiators are working with the White House to come up with a plan to end the shutdown, possibly by tonight. Now, the House Speaker, Thomas Foley, says both House and Senate leaders are in favor of a 30-day cooling-off period. House Democrats also support some mandatory negotiating, followed by some binding arbitration. Earlier today, though, on CNN, Senator Howard Metzenbaum, a Democrat of Ohio, says he doesn't think it's Congress's job to resolve this problem.
I think what they're trying to do is to use Congress and the administration in order to solve their problems. This issue can be resolved. We in Congress think that people ought to go back to work. The railroads ought to start operating. We think we ought to give them maybe a 30-day period in order to cooling off period in order to resolve the differences. They weren't that far apart when the shutdown occurred at the one railroad. I think this is much ado about nothing, and the railroads are attempting to exploit the situation.
President Bush met for the third day with his Transportation Secretary, Andrew Carr, to talk about the situation. The White House says it is disappointed that Congress has not yet intervened. Well, Mr. Bush announced a plan today to provide lower-income parents with money to spend on schools they choose for their children. Surrounded by school children in the Rose Garden, the president signed a proposal which would give parents $1,000 vouchers to spend on public, private, or parochial schools.
For too long, we've shielded schools from competition, allowed our schools a damaging monopoly power over our children. And this monopoly turns students into statistics and turns parents into pawns. And it is time we began thinking of a system of public education in which many providers offer a marketplace of opportunities. Opportunities that give all of our children choices and access to the best education in the world.
White House aides concede that legislation is unlikely to pass the Congress in an election year, and the matter probably will get more attention out on the campaign trail.
Well, the feud between Ross Perot and the Republican Party is turning into a blistering battle. Perot accuses the GOP of running a dirty tricks campaign. Republican Party Chief Rich Bond says Perot's charges, to use Bond's words, that we have some cloak and dagger guys going into his gold-plated garbage cans just aren't true. The undeclared presidential candidate claims the GOP is behind reports that he had President Bush investigated. The war of words hit a fever pitch when Bond called in during Perot's appearance on CNN's Larry King Live last night.
Do you have any proof right now to back up your allegations of dirty tricks?
Oh, sure. I've got more than I need, and at the right point in time, if you guys keep it up, I'll cover it. I'll cover it in great...
Why not show it?
This is not the time and place. When I'm ready, I'll do it. I'll pick my time. I'll pick my place. Now, you're telling me you don't have a huge number of people in opposition research. You're telling me you don't have a huge number of people going through every shred of evidence they can find about anything relating to me. You don't have anything like that. That's what you're telling the American people, Rich.
Rich?
So come on, you think...
I'm saying, do you or don't you? Now, wait, do you...
The dirty trick is repeating your own words back?
No, I'm saying, do you or don't you?
Mr. Perot, it's not a dirty trick to track your words and evaluate your contradictions out there, which is what you deal with every day with the American people.
Is it a dirty trick to distort the truth?
Mr. Perot...
Is it a dirty trick to lie?
No desire to distort the truth.
Well, wait a minute. You called in. If you don't have the... Wait a minute. You called in. You wanted to climb in the ring.
Perot also says the Bush administration approached him about providing funds for humanitarian relief to Panama after the U.S. invasion. He produced a letter from President Bush saying, quote, "Once again, you've shown the Perot spirit of unselfishness when there is trouble or when Americans' lives are at stake." It was signed, George. Perot is in Connecticut today, where supporters earlier submitted a petition to get him on the state ballot as an independent. Well, we are told that the weather is improving at the Cape and that the countdown clock is still ticking. We'll be back live to Kennedy Space Center right after this break.
Usually, when you send flowers out of town, you give the order to somebody who takes a cut. Then he passes the order to somebody else who takes a cut. But now there's Flowers Direct that actually lets you speak to a florist in the area where you're sending the flowers. Flowers Direct, or We Cut, is the middleman. Call Flowers Direct now, 1-800-621-2121.
We were having fun until Thomas put in our new money management program.
Select your investments.
All these investment categories popped up.
Stocks, bonds, T-bills.
That's easy. We only have one.
Why?
That's when I wonder, does everyone have all these?
Common sense says any investment plan should be diversified, and Fidelity Investments, America's largest mutual fund company, can make it easy.
Last night, it really hit us.
This place sounds like Wall Street tonight.
We can barely keep up with our work, let alone our investments. That's when I decided I'm going to find something that can do it all.
I'm going to do some research.
You can make just one investment in Fidelity Asset Manager, a mutual fund that gradually adjusts its portfolio for changing markets with no sales charge It can be great for an IRA, too. So call Fidelity now for a free fact kit on how to diversify in one easy step with Fidelity Asset Manager. Call 1-800-356-8100. Fidelity Investments. Common sense. Uncommon results.
Dentists tell you to change your toothbrush every 3 months. So does the Oral-B indicator. When the blue band fades halfway, it's time for a new brush. The indicator from Oral-B, the brand more dentists use.
She gets a job, but there's hell to pay. The men don't want her there. We'll meet women who face sexual harassment in non-traditional jobs today on Sonia Live, 1 p.m. Eastern, only on CNN.
Well, it often is a moment-to-moment situation when the weather is interfering with the launch of a space shuttle. Let's go back to John Holloman now for an update.
Bobbie, you've been to Florida, as many of our viewers have. You know how the weather can change just in a matter of seconds. What is happening down on the launch pad there right now is that the astronauts have been told to put their sun visors on in preparation for launch. CNN's John Zarrella joins us now from the Kennedy Space Center. John, what has happened in the past couple of minutes while we were away that made it okay to do this?
Frankly, I'm a bit surprised myself at this. I guess the thinking is that it's as good as it's going to be today, and that it is not unacceptable that the weather at the landing site may well hold long enough in case there were an emergency, and that these clouds that are over the launch site are thin enough that they can get through them without worrying about a trigger lightning strike. John?
Yeah, John, I know that Bob Seek, the launch director there, has remarkable luck with getting shuttles off in just very minuscule holes in the cloud cover over Florida from time to time, and maybe that's what's happening right here. For less than a minute from launch at this point, T-minus 45 seconds, and everything aboard the shuttle that's supposed to be running right now is running, and from what everything we're being told from NASA officials, things are ready. We're going to listen to the last 30 seconds of the countdown and watch the shuttle go up.
And we have a go for auto sequence start. Columbia's 4 onboard computers have primary control of all the vehicle's critical functions.
20.
T-minus 20 seconds.
15.
T-minus 15. 12. 10. 9. 8. We have a go for main engine start. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff of the Space Shuttle Columbia and the first extended duration mission, a stepping stone to Space Station Freedom.
Roll program, Houston.
Roger, roll, Columbia.
Houston now controlling. Columbia's rolled to the proper upside-down position, putting the crew with heads down to see the horizon and putting Columbia on course for its planned orbit. Three engines on board Columbia now throttling back to 2/3 throttle as Columbia prepares to pass through the area of maximum air pressure. Columbia's speed now 1,000 miles an hour. Columbia is 2 miles east of the launch pad, altitude of 4.8 miles and in a steep climb. Three engines on Columbia now back at full throttle.
Columbia, Houston, go at throttle up.
Go at throttle up.
Well, as you can see, Shuttle Columbia has passed the point that all of us who have covered space launches in the United States from the Challenger
Columbia
on pass with great trepidation. It's past the go at throttle up point. It appears to be okay as it continues to blast through the clouds. My colleague John Zarrella at the Kennedy Space Center is continuing with us here. John, how did it look to you?
Well, it was hard to see much once it passed through the clouds. Again, I was a little surprised. The cloud deck was thicker than what the meteorologists, or at least appeared to be thicker than what Air Force meteorologists said was acceptable. But apparently it was thin enough for NASA to give it a shot. John?
All right, we can now see the solid rocket motors on the side of the shuttle as it continues to move. There's a long-distance camera. It's more than 5 miles away. There are the 2 solid rocket motors coming off the side of the shuttle. That's also a very welcome sight for those of us who cover this launch. And you can see in the middle of your screen the 3 main engines, which will continue to burn for, I guess, 6.5 more minutes until the shuttle is in orbit. It won't be in its final orbit, 161 miles up at the point the main engine's cut off, but it will be going fast enough to be in an orbit, and they will do another burn of the orbital maneuvering system engines in a few minutes after the main engine's cut out to put it up into orbit. Everybody on the ground at NASA is telling us that Columbia is right on target. Everything's going just as it should so far. 23 miles up in the air. And I used my stopwatch at the beginning of this launch. Columbia went from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in 34 seconds. Those of you who are into auto racing can appreciate that, probably.
That call indicates Columbia could perform an emergency transatlantic landing if needed in case of an engine failure. 3 engines remain at full throttle.
The scariest part of this mission, according to the astronauts, is now just about over. They'll be in orbit in less than 5 minutes, and our coverage of this mission will continue. It's going to be the longest mission to date for the space shuttle, lasting 13 days. Also, NewsHour will continue in just a moment. Stay with us.
Columbia's altitude 50 miles, downrange from the Kennedy Space Center 90 miles. Current speed 4,000 miles an hour.
Some people don't enjoy their pools enough.
It's too much work.
It's easy to keep our pool sparkling and ready to enjoy with BioGuard.
It's too expensive.
The BioGuard 3-step program saves money. We work less, spend less, and enjoy our pool more. Relax, bring your pool to BioGuard.
I'm relaxed. You relaxed?